It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 116, printed in Part B of House Report 118-272. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 116, printed in Part B of House Report number 118-272, offered by Mr. Massie of Kentucky.
Pursuant to House Resolution 864, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massie, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, I rise in support of my amendment, which essentially prohibits funds from being used or being made available to conduct or support gain-of-function research. Section 533 of the underlying bill says that none of the funds in the bill can be used for gain-of-function research in China or Cuba or North Korea or Russia. The problem is that it doesn't prohibit this dangerous type of research anywhere else in the world. Why should we be funding it in France or Great Britain? In fact, why should we be funding it here? I will argue later that we shouldn't, that the risks far outweigh the benefits, and that we should have learned our lesson. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. Does any member claim time in opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'd like to yield a minute and a half to my colleague, Ms. Miller-Meeks.
The gentlewoman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of the amendment number 116 with Mr. Massie to ban the funding of gain-of-function research. For decades, scientists have been warning that gain-of-function research with potential pandemic pathogens could cause an outbreak. From 2014 to 2017, we had paused funding for gain-of-function research after a series of lab accidents and due to fear of a lab-caused pandemic. However, Dr. Fauci and others recommended that the prohibition be removed, and unfortunately, our worst fears came true. Among many others, the FBI, Department of Energy, and a majority of Americans now believe that a laboratory in Wuhan, China, that was conducting NIH-funded gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses caused the COVID-19 pandemic. This was a wake-up call. Last month, during a select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic hearing, Dr. Gerald Parker, former commander of the United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases and the current head of the federal committee that oversees gain-of-function and biosecurity, testified to Congress that gain-of-function research with potential pandemic pathogens has not contributed significantly to biodefense and that its benefits have been exaggerated. Dr. Parker also stated that there are safer alternatives available. Fortunately, last year, Congress passed and enacted common sense language in the labor HHS bill to prohibit gain-of-function research with pathogens in hostile foreign nations, including Russia and China. We must now expand that effort and prohibit taxpayer funding for this dangerous research on U.S. soil and other nations where oversight is lacking. Prohibiting taxpayer funding of dangerous gain-of-function research with potential pandemic pathogens is a common-sense solution to protect public health and national
time has
security.
expired.
I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Madam Chair, I think it would be useful at this point to define gain-of-function research. And I will use the written testimony of Richard Ebright, Board of Governors Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Rutgers University and Laboratory Director of Waxman Institute of Microbiology. In his testimony in a Senate hearing, he said that gain-of-function research is defined as research activities reasonably anticipated to increase a potential pandemic pathogen's transmissibility, pathogenesis, ability to overcome immune response, or ability to overcome a vaccine or drug. Now, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to do gain-of-function research? It's a seductive idea that you could take one of hundreds of thousands of viruses that exist in the animal kingdom outside of humans and try to predict, poke and prod on the virus, encourage it to be transmissible among humans so that you could then predict the next virus that might come into existence among humans and then come up with a vaccine for it. But statistically, there's no way you're going to predict what the next natural virus is going to be. What you will do, though, in the process of this research is create a cookbook, a blueprint for the next pandemic. So the danger in this research, Part of the danger lies in the fact that you are uncovering secrets that will then be published that can be used to create a pandemic of existential proportions. It creates new health threats that through 10,000 years of evolution may never come into existence, but in 10 days of research could come into existence in a lab. Threats that don't exist in nature. So why are we still doing this research right now? Well, in 2014, this research was put on pause from 2014 to 2017. Wisely, I would say. But then the pause was suspended in 2018. By the way, the projects that were paused did not include the projects at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, unfortunately. But then when the pause was removed, this research began again in earnest. Again, creating tremendous risk for the human race. Why would we do this to ourselves? We shouldn't be doing this to ourselves, and we shouldn't be doing it with taxpayer dollars. There is no practical application of this outside of the curiosity of a government lab. This research will not continue in private labs because it's just not profitable. So we should stop it here. And with that, I urge adoption of the amendment. I think it's common sense, and let's protect America by not funding this research. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by a gentleman from Kentucky. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.